Well, ladies. I live in the watershed of the Salmonid Creek, and it's a situation of great concern. When my husband and I moved here 34 years ago, we met Paul Fletcher, and regrets that you're not here with us, Paul. And out of work that Cowichan Valley Naturalist Society did, the South Mills Marsh Wildlife Society was formed, and we have worked along hand in hand ever since, along with many other groups. So the work South Mills Marsh Society is amazing, and sorry Paul's not here because Paul has been that piece day one when Dave and I first met him. Also, I met Paul in an earlier life he has volunteered for a long time at the Cowichan Valley Oak Preserve and has done many other things in the community. And he's a great fan of this important thing, using volunteers and citizen science to understand and work on our watersheds, which you brought forward. So with no more ado, I'd like to ask you to give your presentation that you also did down at Prospect Lake, then, right?
It's similar, yes. A slight modification.
We always change the bit. So this is looking pretty bright and clear. I think perhaps I'll leave the lights on. Any feeling around that?
It really is.
Sorry?
Looks good.
Okay, great. Over to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Genevieve. Thanks, Eric, for your kind words. They're much appreciated. And I would like to say that I really appreciate getting the award, but of course it's team efforts in all of these kind of non-profit organizations, groups we have around the valley here. There's many other people that worked with me that helped me collect water quality samples and do the work that we do. So it's not just me at all, it's a big team. So thanks to all those folks. This presentation is what Gina Hoare and I did. It's very similar to what we did at the BC Lake Stewardship Society conference last September, which was a great conference. There was a lot of very interesting presentations there. And we got lots of questions from people afterwards. So, and this is not a highly technical presentation at all. There's only about 20 slides here. So I should be able to go through it pretty quickly. So we'll have a bit of time for questions at the end. And shall I just tell you when I want to go to the next slide? Okay, next one, please. So Paul Fletcher isn't here. He was going to talk in more detail about our society, but I have a slide here about it. So we are the Salmonid Marsh Wildlife Society. Here we are in the Cowichan Valley on the unceded territory of the Quetzin people, and we are focused on the health of the Salmonid watershed. And this watershed has got lots of issues in it. It's a watershed situated in a urban, agricultural, and forested area. Next, please. So here's a aerial view of the Salmonid watershed towards the left of that image, with the purple part on the right, which is the watershed around Quampton Lake. See Salmonid Lake in the middle there. It's quite a big watershed. It's 88 square kilometers, and there's quite a few creeks that flow into Salmonid Lake. At the bottom end of the lake, you can see a stream flowing down towards the Cowichan River. So, and Duncan's down at the bottom end there. So you can see different color patches on there that kind of reflects the different land uses in the watershed. It's a range of activities. Used to be a lot more agricultural usages in this area than there is now, but as we'll see, the lake is still suffering the after effects of many, many years of nutrient inflows. Next, please. Here's a little picture of Salmonid Lake itself, showing the physical features. It's quite a small lake. It's just about 2 kilometers in length. The maximum depth is around 6.5 meters. It's a shallow, lowland lake. So, and due to those characteristics, it's shallow, it's a lowland lake, And these days it's got a lot of nutrient issues with it. It is a eutrophic lake. So eutrophic is a term that means it's nutrient rich. So it's got lots of stuff in it that makes stuff like algae, aquatic plants grow. Next. So issues. Salmonid lake is eutrophic, and our society, we work with municipalities. So municipality is a big supporter of us, a big funder of our society. So we do a lot of water quality monitoring on their behalf. So in the lake, there's a high nutrient load due to farming, past and present. There are septic fields around the lake. The lake gets runoff from the storm water system. People use fertilizers on their lawns, their gardens. That can find its way into the stormwater system. So the lake is nutrient rich. In the summer, the lake tends to stratify from early summer until September, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but that means that we get some warm water on the top and colder water underneath. And that can be an issue for fish in the lake. We have algal blooms that last throughout the summer. And in the summer, the water quality is poor. This sounds terrible, but it's quite characteristic of many lakes throughout the world. It's a growing problem with shallow lakes, especially in temperate climates. Eutrophication. It's happening in many places. Common Lake, just a few kilometers to the east, is also highly eutrophic. So what we do is we monitor water quality in the lake, and we also monitor water quality in 4 watershed streams. So we do weekly checks. We're looking for temperature, dissolved oxygen, pH, specific conductivity, and dissolved solids, and so forth. And phosphate, ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, those are nutrients that we're looking for in the lake. And within the lake itself, we're measuring at different depths in the lake. So we record a lot of data and we store it in our spreadsheets. And recently we've started transferring that data into a new database system called DataStream. It's a Canada-wide system that started a few years ago. Next, please. And this is repeating the equipment we use. We have YSI instruments and data loggers, Van Dorn, which is a device which you can use to pick up water samples from different depths and use them for phosphate or ammonia analysis. There's Barry in the boat. Barry is in that boat as much as anybody in our society. Next, please. So the lake stratifies, I mentioned that earlier, so that causes quite a few problems. Salmonid lake. So lake stratification means that the lake separates by temperature and eventually by oxygen content. So the lake stratifies because water density varies with temperature. So warmer water tends to rise to the surface of the lake, cooler water sinks to the bottom. Then you get a situation where it's cooler water in the bottom, warmer water above, and they don't mix together. So over the course of the summer, they will, in many lakes, remain separate. Now, Salmonid Lake is quite shallow, so it is possible that times through the summer that the stratification disappears and the lake mixes up and all the water gets to an even temperature, but most of the time it remains in a state of stratification. Aquatic lake is the same. So the bottom layer is called a hypolimnion, and it is cooler. And as the summer progresses, it gets more oxygen poor. That's due to the effect of algae from the surface raining down, dying. coming to the bottom of the lake, and then that algae decomposes and it tends to use up all of the oxygen. The water at the top is warm, and it's got lots of algae growing in it. The oxygen level gets to be quite high up there, and the temperature also gets high. So we end up with a situation where we have warm water above, cold water below, and top water is typically too warm in the summer for salmon to live, and the water below the bottom is cool, but it has no oxygen in it. So that is the unfortunate situation with a lake like Salmonid Lake in this part of the world. Next. So this is repeating what I just said. So the thermocline itself, thermocline is the dividing level between the warmer water above and the cooler water below. So that thermocline can move up and down depending on the weather and wind conditions. And the thermocline is where you go from oxygen poor water but cool to oxygen rich water but warm. So it could be that somewhere around that thermocline there might be a magic zone where salmon or trout can survive. So we've done some investigation looking for that magic zone. And we think it must exist in some parts of the lake because we have found some fish in the lake, and every now and again somebody catches a trout in there. Trout of size. So those are refuge areas that we think must be there, but we haven't managed to find any yet. Another big problem with Salmonid Lake, due to the warmer conditions at the surface, is algae. So there's a lot of algae growth in the lake. It gets very green, scummy towards the end of the summer. And towards the end of the summer, you get species of algae that are actually toxic to dogs, for example. There's a couple of dogs in Watershed Lake, where there's also a lot of algae that died from licking the algae off their legs. It's not toxic if you get it on your skin, but it's toxic if you were to ingest the algae. So as the summer goes on, the types of algae in the lake, the species tend to change. And towards the end of the summer, we find that the blue-green algae, the cyanobacteria, they tend to predominate, and they are the toxic varieties. This chart here at the bottom shows the different species of blue-green algae, and it's listing the toxic varieties. And you can see that as the summer goes by, the varieties then change, but they're present in the lake from June through to August. So, yeah, nasty stuff. This lake probably always was somewhat susceptible to algal blooms, even pre-settlement perhaps. It's shallow and there's natural nutrients that would run into the lake, but certainly since settlement times it's gotten much worse. So state of the fish in the lake, it's a concern for resident fish, especially salmonids, fry, smolts, trout. So at one time, Salmonid Lake was recreationally fished and was stocked with trout. Rainbow trout are still caught occasionally. Could be lake residents. We don't know. There are a lot of pumpkin seed sunfish in the lake. There's no end to them. That's a very it's an invasive species from eastern North America. They're quite tolerant of lower oxygen levels, water. Peamouth chub are in the lake. It's quite an unusual species for the island. And the issue with salmon is it's a difficult place to live for fry and smolts. And in the spawning season, salmon cross the salmonid system to spawn. So in the fall, the lake becomes better for salmon, but as I'll discuss in a moment, there are other reasons why salmon find it difficult to get up to the spawning areas in the watershed. But before we get on to that, we did have a cohort mortality event in the lake back in August of 2023. So nothing like 84,000, but we did pick up 60 dead juvenile coho in the lake, and the likely causes would be high temperature or low dissolved oxygen or possible other causes, which we're not sure about. So they were in the lake, so the lake temperature was high at the surface. So prior to this fish kill, we had a few very warm days. So it might have just pushed the temperature in the lake too high for these fish. Why were they in the lake anyway? Why weren't they up in the streams that flow into the lake? Well, we're not sure about that. So it's a bit of a mystery. We did collect some and fortunately froze them, but we weren't able to turn them over to the DFO for any analysis. But next year, if we have any further fish kills, we'll be a bit more, I think, on the ball and try to get some further sampling done. So, and these were fry that were probably second year fry, because they were 80 millimeters long, maybe 80, 90. So, sure pretty big. So, next please. So, that is a bit about the lakes. So I'll just talk a little about the creeks, the watershed. So a lot of creeks that drain into Salmonid Lake. A lot of them are quite small, but they flow through quite a mixture of urban agriculture, land, and forested land. There's a lot of stormwater drainage. So in the municipality and city of Duncan, of course, the development pattern has been to dump all stormwater into the creeks. So when it then flows into the lakes or the river. So we monitor the water quality in the inflow creeks throughout the year. And the inflow creek water quality is mostly good, except for, next slide please. One particular creek is Richards Creek, which is the north end of the lake, and it is probably the prime source of nutrients for the lake. As it comes through an agricultural area, that would be north of Herd Road. If you go along Herd Road, you look towards the north there, you'll see a lot of flat fields up there. It's an area where a lot of vegetables were grown up in that area. And it's floodplain. It's just really an extension of the floodplain surrounding Salmonid Lake, low lying, ditched, actively farmed, with lots of fertilizer use in the spring, and all that stuff. And from other sources as well, flows into the lake and gets into the water, and also eventually settles to the bottom of the lake and settles down into the lake sediments. Next slide, please. So this is just a view of Richards Creek looking north from Herd Road. So if you click your down arrow key, there's a little animation in this. I was at the creek doing my water quality check there last summer, and I got a little show from a couple of bears in the creek there. So
Oh, yes, right.
you see them there. So there was a sow and her cub, and they came through the bushes to the right of the creek there, and the mother swam across, turned around for her cub, and he wasn't ready to go into the creek quite yet. So she swam all the way back, gave him a lick, then she swam back again, and he still looked at her. So eventually she came back partway in the water, and he got up his courage and jumped in and swam across. He might have been discouraged by all the duckweed on the water, because he's like a total coverage of green, like it was all the way up to the That's Richards Creek. It's actually ditched all through there and also with flatlands until you get around the corner up to Richards Trail. And a lot of, well, corn grown now. Used to be big potato fields and carrots grown up there. So that is probably the worst source for nutrients. Next, please. However, we have another problem, which is the outflow creek from Salmonid Lake, which is Salmonid Creek, and it drains into the Couch River. It's the passageway for salmon that come to spawn in the Salmonid watershed. And this creek, unfortunately, is covered with an invasive aquatic weed as well as native aquatic weeds. Next, please. So the water in Salmonid Creek is nutrient rich, it's from the lake. And the creek itself has got a very low elevation drop, so it's very sluggish water. So one of the projects we had last year, and continue this year, is we're trying to prevent the aquatic weeds from totally covering the creek. We'd like to try and keep an open channel in the creek. We think that would improve the water quality, especially in the fall. So we're trying to trim the growing edge of the aquatic weeds so that in the fall, when we have rain, the lake water is healthy, it will flow better through the creek and improve the water quality in Salmonid Creek. So right at the moment, the water quality in the creek is not survivable for any salmon that might want to come up there until mid-November. So the oxygen levels stay low until that time. We're pretty sure in the past, before we had so much coverage with aquatic weeds, that the oxygen levels would recover to sustainable levels 2 to 4 weeks before that. So there used to be coho, or there used to be chum that used to come up into the watershed and spawn. The chum run is chum come up in the Couch River a bit earlier than the end of November. So I think we're just don't have conditions that suit them at the moment. So this big project for us that we're working on with the assistance of the municipality, we're going to continue next year. Hopefully get off it a bit early. This picture shows us with this trimming tool, we're trying to hack through this parts for the weed, which is very tough and dense stuff. Next, please. So here we come down to the end. Can salmon survive in this watershed? So I think our watershed is probably a worst case for listening to people around the table and the issues that they have. Salmonid Lake is a bad place for salmon from June till September. The creek is impassable for salmon from June till November due to low dissolved oxygen. Flow levels and inflow of streams appear to be declining. Temperatures are rising. It's all gloomy stuff. But salmon are resilient, so we don't want to abandon all hope. We have found coho fry and adults in many parts of the watershed where the water quality remains good for salmon and trout. So this year we completed our salmon counts after this presentation and after this these slides were done. So we counted in Richards Creek, which is the worst case creek. We did count around 100 spawning salmon in there. So they are getting through.
Just over 100.
Just over. In past years, to put that in perspective, 30 years ago, it was, in most years, there was 800 to 1,000 spawning salmon, Richards Creek. So that shows you how much things have changed, not even in that generation. So, but fish are resilient. I think if we give them a chance, we can do some restoration, get things improved in some of these creeks that will maybe get those numbers back and higher than what they are now for sure. So. And Eric touched on these points here actually, but I won't read them all again, but a big thing that I think about quite a bit is how can we actually get things changed here? Like we're a volunteer group we want to get this done. have our goals, and sometimes it seems to struggle dealing with government agencies. You have too many levels of government. I think it makes it difficult to get things done. We have municipalities, regional districts, province, federal governments. It sometimes seems difficult to push through and get them to get on board with us. We all mean well, you talk to them, and it's all good, but it can be difficult to marshal the assistance you need from those bodies. Eutrophic lakes, such as we have, are very complex. I think the lake itself is a big issue within our watershed. We do lots of works on creeks, but we haven't done anything corrective on the lake. But it's the big, what we call the big looming problem for us. At some point, hopefully, it will be addressed. Take a big effort to get that under control. I read my limnology textbooks, and I read about eutrophic lakes around the world and the difficulties of them. The solution is really hard to get nutrient inflow under control, and then usually wait for 10 or 20 years. If you do that, the lake will eventually fix itself. That's the goal and tolerance for our watershed, I think. So I think that's next slide. I think is questions. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. Comprehensive overview of the situation, the way we can nail it down. I really appreciate that. It's just a group. We are at time. I expect you'll stay on for a few minutes.
Sure.
People could address questions, but I would like to, because we do end on time, close the meeting at this point. I'll look forward to you next month, where we have Dave Cap speaking on whirling disease and Sherry bringing forward concerns from the Chemainus watershed.